Start a small business. No need to work 40, 50 hours a week, slaving your life away. Obtain financial freedom, be your own boss, and create your own destiny. Moguls are the new superstars. The path to country club membership and a leased Mercedes-Benz is paved in gold as you take your business trips to Orlando or Vegas. Validation from your in-laws is just an LLC and Facebook business page away. At least, that's what they tell you anyways. Through social media, websites, and targeted ads, you're sold an image. Small business owners seem to walk on water. You'd think you're the last person on earth working a regular job with a regular boss. But there's trouble in paradise, and its name is in over your head. People start looking to start their own business, don't know what they don't know. But that's why we started our Small Business Confidential podcast, to share what we've learned from years of experience. There's not a lot of people in on this, so remember, dear podcast listeners, you heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush.
How would you go about selling a house? Or maybe a boat? Or what about selling yourself? What are the steps in the sales process? Finding the right method that works for you is the key to success in sales. Mike Reilly and Mike Ferrante will discuss their step-by-step sales process and how they close sales and deal with objections. This is a must-listen episode. Stay tuned on Small Business Confidential.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Ferrante with a slightly under par, non-caffeinated Mike Ferrante.
Yeah, I had the espresso, but yeah, I got a vaccine yesterday, so a little under the weather
And
today.
This was a shingles vaccine.
Yeah,
So-
I hear that's what you should do, and my doctor recommended it. And one of the guys that I work with actually had shingles recently, and I felt like that was the universe telling me, go get the vaccine, Mike.
Yep. And I knew a good friend of mine who had it, and it is brutal if you get shingles. But of course, some people, hey, well, vaccine, schmaxine, I don't care. I'm Bob. And then, of course, they get COVID and then they die. So anyways, shingles is a slow torture, not death. But anyways, on that positive note, we're going to talk about how to sell a house. And I'm going to lead off because I'll let you catch your breath. We're going to make this short and sweet. But I don't care what you're selling. You're selling a boat. You're selling a house. You're selling a contracting job. You're selling an encyclopedia, which doesn't exist anymore, except on Wiki. But you always follow the first three steps. The first step, Mike, can you guess what that first step is in the sales process?
The first step in the sales process. It's got to be some kind of preparation, research, something like that.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But let's keep it simple. I think the first step is you make a friend. Okay? And not a phony make a friend, but you try to find some common ground. Like working with Lindsay on selling our short-term rentals. The first thing I always do is, hey, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Chicago. Oh, Lindsay, she just, ran the Chicago Marathon last year. And then, maybe you spend a minute, 30 seconds, or where did you go to college? Or, do you like to play golf? Or how's the weather? Whatever. But you just don't jump right into the deep end of the pool. Your thoughts?
I can't agree more. We were just at a convention where the folks that were doing training there were talking about, look, just don't just jump on a call or jump on an appointment. You should do some homework on the person and, maybe stalk them on Facebook or LinkedIn and see what they're interested in, and, have some of that stuff in your back pocket so you know what you do have in common with them. So maybe even find that stuff out before you jump on the call.
Okay, I'm going to give you that. So our number one thing is do a little prep first. And number two is then you take that prep and you make a friend without making it seem artificial,
right,
or rote, or you're reading from a script. It's got to be genuine. So when you say to somebody, hey, I heard or I saw through LinkedIn that you fill in the blank. right? Without
Yeah.
sounding like a creeper.
Right.
Um,
And I think people are flattered when you do a little homework on them. Hey, I wanted to learn a little about you before we had our appointment or our conversation.
right. So when you build that sort of just a little touch of intimacy, authenticity, they get to know you, whatever, and that's going to be the underpinning of how you're going to carry on your conversation. So there's a natural flow to number two. Number one was do your prep, make a friend. Number two is what? I know
Oh
this is
gosh.
hard. I know this is hard with the shingles vaccine. So
uh gosh, I'm coming up empty here, Mike. You're gonna
okay,
have to give
good.
it to me.
Okay. Number two is ask questions.
Ah,
Gather information. You and that old sales proverb, you have two ears and one mouth.
right.
Okay. You listen, you ask questions, you start assembling as many pieces to the puzzle as you can, because what the puzzle looks like is a successful sale. So you have to build all these different puzzles. So let's say, okay, we're selling the house. All right. So fire away sample questions you would ask somebody before you drop the brochure, which, folks, is always the last thing you do. So I'll give you a little spoiler alert here. So you're asking questions, you're gathering information. What are you
Yeah.
asking, Mike?
There's all kinds of questions. The first question I want to know is why are you selling? Then where are you going? What are you going to do with the money? Some people are buying another house or renting, and these questions translate to pretty much any field, but getting to find out about motivation, the why behind the what, I think those are all of the important questions.
Right. And keep in mind, when you are in that sales mode, you're also in marketing mode, because you do this over the course of the month. Let's say you talk to 10 to 12 different people over the course of the month. You're asking the questions. Keep a portion of your brain or on your notes for market feedback. Is the market slowing down? Are more and more people starting to say stuff like, "Oh, I'm really worried if I'm going to be able to sell my house"? I mean, that's an indicator of, if you keep hearing that enough, what the general market vibe is. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because I keep a pretty close tab on those numbers, as you know. We do our heat checks, and the funny thing is that when people talk about, oh, the market's slowing down, it's really just back to normal. So,
Right.
we're already seeing multiple offers again. There was 15 offers on a house that one of my teammates was trying to put an offer in on. But going back to your series of questions, Mike, let me share one of my favorite questions, and that is, flat out asking them, "Hey, if this goes perfectly, tell me what that looks like." And
Right.
folks will tell you what they're looking for, even before you have to tell them what you're gonna deliver.
Right. Exactly. And that's so true. What is, because what you're trying to define is, what is the goal? What's the destination?
Right.
And once they tell you that, then that is going to then refine the questions that you're asking. Now, I'll give you one of my favorite stories. I probably said this in an earlier podcast, but I'll never forget 30 years ago, coming out of a sales seminar that I took with an elderly lady who was a sales coach. I mean, she was amazing. And she taught me to slow down and ask questions. So sure enough, I meet this guy and I asked him, he says, I need to get my house painted. And folks, I have a 50-year company, Reilly Painting and Contracting. That's the main parent company. And he says, well, Mike, I need to, I got to get the house painted. I said, well, why do you have to get the house painted? He goes, well, I'm getting ready to, I'm putting it on the market. Okay, well, right away, I told him, well, you don't need to paint the whole house. You just need to do the front and the drive side, and we can just touch up the garage and touch up the back, same color. House weathers differently depending on where the sun and the wind and the weathering hits it. But he said I could easily just do two sides, but I would recommend that you wash the windows, and that, we talked about that last week. wash the windows, and this entryway, this vestibule, this needs to get cleaned up, and then this, and then this. And I put together a proposal that was less than painting the whole house. It encompassed stuff he never even thought about. And he was getting transferred, and he didn't have any time to think it through. And if you're asking the questions and defining what that destination is, guess what? You can start taking over driving the car. You know where the car's going now. And that is what most people who you're selling to want. They want you to get them there, right?
Yeah, most people want you to guide them through the process. They've called you there because you're the expert.
Right. So, enunciating what that goal looks like, how if things go perfectly, for them it's I can get my price fast without spending a lot of money. Right?
100%.
Yeah. Without having to do the kitchens. Hey, Mike, I really like this vibe. You should take that shingles vaccine more often. I'm really, hey, is that right, Mike? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Yeah, I'm a little mellow today, but this is something I'm passionate about, Mike. The asking of questions, I think, is where most people miss the boat on a sales call, because they go in thinking, what am I going to say instead of what am I going to ask?
Exactly. And you're in the mere fact, going back to number one, make a friend, be prepared, know this, who this potential friend could be. That preparation is so key because it's refreshing to people that you're taking the time. I got to tell you what happened a couple of days ago. We were interviewing a subcontractor, and he threw out 500 emails to people that we offer this, cleaning out service, basements, garages, stuff like that. So we get him on the phone, and I wish I had recorded it. It was everything you're not supposed to do as a salesman. This guy would not shut up. I mean, he was talking, yeah, we do this, and I got 6 crews, and I like to keep my people busy because, and then I'll go, we're buying this, and then we're buying that. And I'm just listening to that. I'm thinking to myself, this is the last guy I want to hire because he's everywhere and anywhere. He's got his hands into 20 different pies, and probably none of them are making any money because he's not concentrating. And he's not curious about who I am. He's not asking me, well, how long have you had your business and what do you guys do? And, how can we help you? And, this and that. He's not asking questions. He's just blabbing away.
I'm guessing that's a good lead in to the next step. How can we help you?
Right. What is the hot word? That is number 3. We talked about preparation, then making the friend, gathering information, asking questions and listening. The next is identify what the hot word is.
Yeah, I think another way to put that is pain point.
Pain point. Okay, pain point, hot word. So because everything that you do, when you identify that hot word, let's say this guy's got to be out of the house. This has got to be sold because he's getting transferred June 1. Okay, we're into March. We've got some work to do. It's going to be on the market in April, or the kid's going to have to start school, so we're going to have to be relocated and blah, blah, blah. That is the hot word, right? Now, that hot word also should, that destination, what that puzzle looks like, should also include, do they need to make top dollar? Do they have to sell this for X number of dollars because they have a big mortgage, right?
Yeah. I mean, there isn't a seller in the world who doesn't want to get a fair price, but I think that a lot of us make the false assumption that the end sale price is the most important thing, and it isn't always. So drop your assumptions at the door before you walk through and figure out what it really is that's important to your folks.
Right. I learned a long time ago, when you're like, say, marriage counseling or you're trying to get along with somebody who's a little suspicious or a little this, a little that, identifying the hot word and then wrapping it around what you say in a form of reflective listening. You're telling somebody, hey, I know that you've been burned in the past with an incompetent realtor. And you're really concerned that we're going to be able to get this thing sold because of that bad realtor, or maybe it was because you're trying to sell in 08 or 09 when the market had crashed. So there's still a little bit of, PTS, in selling a house. And if you keep repeating that hot word in everything you say, that is going to go, that apple now is ready to fall off the tree into your hands. The fruit's getting lower, it's lower. There's a comfort building. The mere fact you're listening to them and reflecting it back to them is building your credibility and your authenticity.
Yeah, and I think it's the same in your business, Mike, with the contracting. Finding what people actually want. You talk about it all the time, where someone says, "Well, I need to do this, this, and this," and then when you ask them why, then you're able to redirect them and say, well, doesn't it make more sense to actually think about these things instead of those things, or in addition to those things?
Right. And I think and that goes back to doing that preparation, understanding who you're talking to, and then you build on that with the questions. I mean, let's just bookmark this house sale, because that's just a specific example. But for those out there that are looking for a job, well, let's say you're just graduated from college, or let's just say you left college because it just wasn't your cup of tea and you're 2 years in and you don't want to spend any more money. It's time to go out and start to get a job. Now, first of all, one thing I strongly suggest you do, and maybe just go on YouTube University or whatever, learn how to sell. Learn how to sell. Because most people that go out, especially those people that have a false sense of security with a college degree, they think the resume is going to do all the work. I mean, all they're going to do is say, here's my resume. I went to this college. I got a 4.0, as if that's the reason why somebody's going to hire you. Okay. And that's why I say, don't go in, hold that resume, hold that business card. Mike, hold that realtor brochure crap till the back end. Build a relationship with somebody. Understand what they want. And especially for you college grads going out there, because you have a false sense of what the market is. The market doesn't care what your grades were. The market wants to know, what are you going to do for me? And that realtor who comes out, if you're interviewing realtors, they've got to come across as being curious and being proactive and being good listeners and having some creative approach to meeting your destination. Thoughts? Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
If you enjoy listening to our Small Business Confidential podcast, we're sure you'll enjoy our first podcast, The Cleveland Real Estate Investor. We give outside investors an inside look into the real estate market in Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the rise, and investors from all over see those cheap prices and salivate. Our job is to educate those investors and steer them in the right direction with several years of experience of how to do it right and many examples of how to do it wrong. Find the Cleveland Real Estate Investor podcast on any app you listen to your podcast today.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. You bringing the college thought into it and interviewing for a job. It was a concept that I learned a long time ago. The last job that I had was at a construction company, and walking in the door, having a bunch of questions ready where I actually asked them more questions than they asked me, and it told them who I was, which I think was the reason I got that job. That was the big reason. Certainly my resume had some things that piqued their interest, but that's not what gets you the job. It may get you the interview, but you got to win them over when you're there talking to them.
It's another demographic that is just really, it's really painful to watch them sell, are the 50-something middle managers who got laid off or who got downsized. And I mean, it's tragic, and it's almost black comedy watching them go out and look for a job. And they make the same mistake as that naive college person. They think that their resume working at this blue chip company is going to give them some sort of glamour, halo, whatever you want to call it. But in reality, what it's telling the person who's interviewing them, I don't know whether this guy wants to take a step down or two and work for me. Okay? Because they're putting down the resume. I made 150,000, a 20-year, 25-year thing, and I got laid off. Well, what do you think? Hey, 50-something people out there, if you're listening to this, what do you think the person on the other side of the desk is thinking when you say that?
Yeah, I can tell you what I'd be thinking, Mike, is I would wonder if that person would be trainable, coachable, or are they going to be so set in their ways that I'm just going to be butting heads with them? And I know this is one of your pet peeves, but the old, well, this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way I did it at my last job.
Right,
that's going to come
exactly.
into play, and that's going to drive you nuts.
Right. And being somebody to open to new things. I remember that argument I got in years ago, and I probably mentioned this in the past podcast, but I'll never forget this argument I got in with this realtor, because we were brought out by the father of the son and his wife who were trying to sell the house. And the house was just sitting there for 6-7 months, just sitting there, no offers, whatever. And it was in University Heights. And I went out there because he wanted us to go out there. He really liked working. This was Dave and myself and Bob and Eric, and he had worked with us for years, and he really trusted us. I went out there. I could not believe what I saw in the front of the house. The shutter, one of the shutters was hanging by a thread. I mean, literally hanging over the doorway. The front entryway had huge cavities where it needed to be tuck pointed. The windows were filthy. The landscaping was non-existent, which is covered with weeds. And this lady, or this person, it's not man or woman, but let's just say this person was telling them that the market was slow, which is why it wasn't sold. And so what do you do in a situation like that where it's realtor malpractice?
I was waiting for you to say that, Mike. I remember that's the story where you coined the term realtor malpractice.
Yeah, or contractor malpractice. The contractor who takes 4 months to do a job that should take 4 days. Okay, contractor malpractice. Or then there's lawyer malpractice, where they literally are just, you sneeze and there's a bill for $150. And there's no end game to it. Like if I said to a lawyer, look at how much to get this case solved. Give me a ballpark. 2,000, 10,000, what is it? 5,000. And they, this is how much we charge per hour. I don't care how much you charge per hour. You talk about tone deaf. I want this taken care of, and I got to make a decision how much we pay. So in every facet of industry or profession, be it real estate, lawyer, banker, contractor, the art of selling is the art of building a positive relationship with your counterparty, where everybody wins. They get what they want, and you get what you want. You want a listing and you want a commission, right, Mike?
Yeah, and I think another way to put it is it's not about you, the salesperson. It's about the customer and what their goals are and how you can meet those needs.
Right. Or what about how many times I used to hear this? Somebody would say in a job interview, they'd come over and they would say stuff like, well, I need to make X. I'm thinking to myself, could you imagine me going out selling a contracting job, a paint job, a kitchen job, telling them what I need to make? I mean, really? I mean, that guy is not even worth minimum wage. He's so stupid. But anyways, getting back to my story about real estate malpractice, here I was. I knew what the problem was. The problem was the realtor didn't know what she was doing. And I got into an argument with her. And of course, she came back and started saying, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. I said, I don't care how long you've been doing this. I have never seen something as botched up as this. And I am telling your client, and you better not get in my way, that we're going to wash the windows. We're going to clean up the front yard. We're going to clean up the tuck pointing, the splatters on the paint, and then we're going to put it back on the market. That thing got sold in 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks. And so a lot of times you come into a situation, let's say you're coming in, let's keep on that real estate malpractice riff. You're coming into a house that's been sitting there for 6 months. They couldn't sell it. You've been in that situation, right?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me how you handle it without ruffling feathers from some incompetent realtor.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I usually try to do is I don't purposely go out of my way to disparage anyone, but my job there is to figure out why it didn't sell. And, usually it boils down to making a list. Well, here are some things I would do differently. And that's how I present it.
Yeah, well, see, I'm a little bit more, I'll probably caveat what I'm saying. Listen, I think, like I told that young couple, I said, listen, this thing is just botched. This is so upside down that it's not like I think this is what we need to do or this is what I would do. I know this is what we need to do. I mean, you'll at least get offers. And I know what they were asking was not out of the realm of possibility. But at least you're going to start getting some offers, right?
Yeah. Well,
start a dialogue.
And again, it's about the assumptions too. So I think what happens is the salesperson walks in the door making an assumption that maybe the seller doesn't want to do these things or doesn't want to be bothered to do these things. And that goes both ways, Mike. So you've got your example there where maybe that agent didn't say, hey, here are some things you can do to make this house sell better or for more or faster, and it's their choice. It's not your choice as to whether or not they do it, because I've had the opposite true as well. I walked into a house, they had interviewed someone else, and the realtor came in and said, well, you have to strip this wallpaper, and she made a laundry list.
Yeah.
And so I walked in that house and they said, well, this is what we were told. And I said, well, I disagree. I think you can do those things, and here's what that looks like. Or you can just price it to reflect that work not being done, and the house will still sell. And it did. That person made the false assumption that they only wanted to get top dollar, that they weren't willing to take a little less and not have to strip the wallpaper and paint the house and everything. They just wanted easy, fast.
Exactly. Now, this is where we're getting into the money round, Mike. So take a deep breath, suck it up. We're almost done. Okay. We get into the last part of the sales process, which is closing and meeting objections. This is where the rubber meets the road. And this does not necessarily mean, when I say closing, they call about always be closing, ABC. Closing where you ask for the job. You're not necessarily asking for the job. You are asking for a decision. And that decision has to work for both you and them. Let's say you've got somebody who wants to sell a $100,000 house for $200,000 and they don't want to do any work. Now, when you get into closing, you're asking yourself, do I really want to list this house?
Yeah. And that answer is probably no, based on what you just said.
Right. Exactly. No, I'm not touching this. And from a contractor standpoint, it's the same thing. And I want people to understand something. Selling is not manipulative. Selling is you are trying to gather jobs or a job or a career that works for you, okay? That's the important thing to remember. Now, if you're an ethical person and you want to sleep well at night and you want to play the long game and maintain your credibility and your morality, you're going to want to make sure that the person you're working for or with or whatever is going to be happy at the end of the day. So closing is then also associated with meeting objections. Like, great example, I'm selling a contracting job years ago. It's the middle of winter. I'm talking to them. They really want to do it. We're really getting along, and the job is $15,000. And I can just see they really want to do it, but there's something getting in the way. So closing and meeting objections is, you know what? What's the objection? Well, we really want to do this, but we don't get our income tax check until next month. I said, listen, we'll get started. We're slow now. We're taking work now, and we're giving people a pay plan. Bingo. Right? Everybody's winning.
Yeah, that's not manipulation. That's meeting a need.
And that's being honest. And so, because at the end of the day, they want to do it and you want the job, and you have to fill an open slot in your schedule. And this is where, people are going to remember you. People are going to remember you even if you say no to them. Because sure enough, that house that's trying to sell for double what it should be getting, they're going to remember you 6 months, 7 months down the line, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I always say, Mike. I don't want to be that first agent that makes the mistake of planting the sign and letting it sit there and grow weeds around it for 6 months. I want to be the second agent who comes in and says, well, you tried it that way. Now let's try it the right way.
Right. And there's got to be some logic to what you're saying. Okay, so why do I have to pull up the carpet? Tell me, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, why are you telling me to do that? Because you think this is what people want? I mean, your friends who come over for dinner the next day, ask them, would they buy this house? And would they expect especially this house we talked about last week, this 650 versus 750 in our last podcast. And the point is you're going to know pretty soon whether that carpet really is an objection, right?
Yeah. If you're collecting the data, if I know so many times houses will sit on the market and I'll ask the sellers, well, what was the feedback? What did people say? What didn't they like? Well, I don't know.
Right. That's why you have to close. I told Lindsay, when she's selling our short-term rentals, she said, you know what? She said, tell me what you think. You're not going to break my heart if you say no. I've got 2 other people that are interested. And that's when you really hear the real deal. You want them to tell you, I just think it's too much money, or, you know what, I just don't like the neighborhood, or I really don't like this dishwasher here, or I wish it had a dishwasher. Because in some cases, you could actually meet the objection. You can say, well, I can get a dishwasher in here next week if that's the problem. Oh, you can? Oh, okay. Well, then, let's book it. Okay. That's how you close. You get the objection, you meet the objection, then you close again. And if they're still undecided, you move on and you don't waste your time. Okay, Mike, final thoughts, and we'll send you to get more herbal tea, right?
Right. No, I think you're spot on, Mike. And what I always say is that if you've done a good job during the appointment, there are no objections at the end. If there are objections, that means you missed something. You didn't uncover an objection, or you didn't uncover a need. So that's my opinion.
Right. And so my final thought is this, folks: if you're interviewing a contractor, or contractors coming out for an estimate, or a realtor, like, Mike Ferrante's case, I want you to watch the interview process and ask yourself, how easy is it going to be for me to work with this person? Because I'll tell you one thing, if they're not listening now, okay, before they got the listing, before you signed the contract, can you imagine how well they're going to listen once the contract's signed?
Yeah, not a good way to start.
Right. You keep that in mind. And the other thing I'm going to add, final thought, do not hire a friend or relative, period. Never do that, because you want to be able to fire that realtor if you have to. And you can't fire a family relative because that's verboten. So don't hire a friend, don't hire a relative. You keep this professional.
Yeah, I agree.
And if your friend is worth being a friend, they will understand. Okay. So, all right. Well, thanks, Mike, for rallying.
Yeah, great stuff.
And we will pick this up next week. Okay, everybody. Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Small Business Confidential. To support, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also add our podcast to your favorite streaming services. Everything is appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another episode and upload schedule. The person voicing the intro's name is Travis Reilly. Thank you, Travis. And the music was done by our engineer, me, Amari.